Hey all, here OS Reviews. Almost a year and a half ago, we checked out the Dudios Zeus Air. At the time, they were one of the first pairs of budget TWS wireless buds to come with Bluetooth 5.0, and for the price of around $30, I thought they were really good in terms of the performance that you're getting, very consistent thanks to the newer generation Bluetooth chip. Well, quite a lot has changed in the last year and a half, as pretty much every pair of wireless buds now, even budget ones, are getting better and better, so it's a more competitive space than it once was. Still, today we're going to take a look at another pair from the same company called the Dudios Tix. It retains the low price point of around $30. Now, if they look slightly familiar, that's because they are the same as the QCY T5s. They're effectively the same product. Now, the new feature here is what's called a gaming mode, where you can triple tap on the right side in order to activate it. It's a low latency mode, where previously, if you're using wireless buds, you would know that there's quite a bit of delay between what's happening on screen, the action, and what you're hearing, especially in high action sequences. If you're gaming, if you're watching a thriller, an action movie, that can cause a bit of a lag, and that effect kind of detracts from the overall immersiveness. They've been able to reduce the latency to something that's much more enjoyable. It lasts for around 20 hours with the battery case, so not the longest battery life unfortunately, but it's still average, similar to the Apple AirPods, I'd say. The buds themselves will last for around 4.5 hours on a single charge, and then the case can provide an additional 4 charges when on the road. Accessories include spare silicone tips to get a more custom fit. We also have a charging cable, but unfortunately it's still using micro USB as opposed to, say, USB Type-C. But again, for under $30, I would say it's forgivable. Taking a closer look at the design, the box here is completely square and does have a magnetic lid this time around, compared to the previous generation which was completely revealed or opened, but the overall dimensions are actually quite similar. Open up the lid, we have a little bit of branding information inside of the door, and then we see the buds themselves, which also have a very simple one-piece design with a touch-sensitive area that you can tap on very gently to do things like play and pause the music, activate the gaming low-latency mode. Also works well for watching videos, by the way, in addition to skipping tracks. But one thing you aren't able to do is adjust the volume, such as raising it higher or lower. Side by side with the Redmi AirDots, which are also very similar in terms of pricing. Also, they sell for about $30, so these are going to be some of its closest competitors, in addition to the Halo GT1s, which are another close competitor in terms of pricing. Last but not least, here's a pair from SoundPeats. They're called the TruePods. They're also fairly inexpensive, but they sell for about $5 more. In this case, though, we do have a Type-C port for charging, and it does also have a similar kind of stem design. We can see there is a small LED light which will flash and glow to indicate its pairing status. The touch-sensitive area is around the top portion, and it is very sensitive, so I didn't have any issues in terms of getting it to respond, which is good. Gentle taps will be registered. I always prefer touch-sensitive keys to physical ones on buds, just because they don't exert as much pressure when you are tapping on it. So this is an improvement area compared to the previous Zeus Air, which had a physical button that you needed to press down on. Next to the AirPods, you can see the shape and dimensions are very similar, except that the Dudios do have a classic in-ear shape, which isolates sound a little bit better. The stem does mean that the microphone is pointed closer to your mouth, and as a result, the mic quality on these are one of the better ones I've encountered for cheap budget wireless buds. So if you plan on doing a lot of phone calls, it does have a slightly better quality, and it has more of that traditional Bluetooth headset design from back in the day. With that being said, having that stem also means that it kind of touches the side of your face a little bit more, so you have to be a bit more conscious of your hygiene, of kind of wiping it down every once in a while if you are kind of sweating and going to the gym. Moving into audio quality and performance, one thing I do want to emphasize is they are still using a slightly cheaper Realtek chip. So it doesn't have a Qualcomm chip, which is usually reserved for more expensive models, so it doesn't have aptX codec as a result. So it still is relying on SBC and AAC, so that low latency mode is an improvement in terms of Realtek chips, but Qualcomm's aptX low latency enabled headphones can still technically get you slightly lower or very similar latency performance. It definitely is functional. One of my initial concerns though would be a trade-off between the latency and sound quality. I was afraid that with the mode activated, the sound quality would deteriorate and you will hear, a lot more static or popping, something like that. But luckily, that was absolutely not the case. In fact, I really couldn't hear much of a difference at all with the mode turned on or with it turned off. And it also doesn't seem to impact the battery life that much either. So it's a feature that basically I just turn on most of the time. In gaming, I would say there is still a tiny amount of lag or latency, but it's not too distracting, I would say. It's around the scale of 150 milliseconds or so in my testing, so it's reasonable. You'll maybe, hit a trigger on a gun and you'll hear the gunshot just a slight second later, but for the most part, it feels still quite natural compared to if you turn the feature off, there will be a much more noticeable delay of an additional 100 to 200 milliseconds. But especially for watching videos, things like YouTube and Netflix, it really is a rock star in those areas. For the pure audio quality, I would say it's also sounding pretty decent, although to be completely honest, the drivers, in terms of how they sound, isn't all that dramatically improved compared to the past generation buds. It is a little bit better sounding than the Redmi AirDots, in my opinion, just because they're a little cleaner. I could hear less distortion or static or hum and hiss in the background. These are a lot cleaner, so aside from the music, it's almost completely silent, which is good. Otherwise, there is a good amount of bass, but they're definitely not overpowering, and I wouldn't say that they are the most bass-heavy buds I've ever encountered. In fact, I would argue that the past generation Zeus Air were slightly more bass heavy. With that being said, this is still not going to really disappoint you unless you are an extreme bass head. Mids are also quite clear. Same thing goes with treble. It doesn't sound too shrill or harsh as it's hitting notes and beats which are a little bit higher in terms of range. So all in all, I would say very good sound quality considering the low price. Are these absolutely the best sounding TWS buds that I've reviewed? Definitely not. They are still not really audiophile grade in terms of giving you the most perhaps precision or the most detailed sound if you're comparing it with dual driver pairs such as the Mifo O7s, for example. But those are also pairs of headphones which sell for many times the price of these. Again, for only $30, you definitely won't be disappointed. No real issues in terms of connectivity, despite the fact that it's using a Realtek chip. I was able to kind of walk around within a range of around 10 meters from the phone, and it was still connected pretty well between the left and right sides. So that's more or less it as far as our hands-on review of the Dudios TIC, also known as the QCY T5s. I would say these are a great all-rounder pair of budget TWS buds with good solid audio quality considering the budget price, in addition to having very impressive latency. If you're interested, you can check out more details in the links down below, but for now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the Dudios TICs, again, also known as the QCY T5.